After 43 years of marriage, I thought nothing could surprise me. But last Thursday at our kitchen table, Margaret quietly told me she thought it would be better if I didn't come to the cottage for Christmas, and that moment hit me hard. When I asked why, she avoided my eyes and said the kids felt it would be easier if I stayed home because I'd been difficult lately. A word that stung as she listed moments like my disagreement with our son Trevor over his risky plan to quit his job for a cryptocurrency podcast and a comment I made about our daughter Emma's boyfriend. I tried to explain that I was just being honest and having conversations, but Margaret let out that tired sigh and said I was always judging instead of supporting, always pushing my opinions. Sitting there, I looked at the woman I'd loved since we met at the University of Toronto in 1979, the life we built with our children, our home in North York, and my long career as a civil engineer, work I took pride in, and all I could think was how unreal it felt that after 4 decades together, I was being told I wasn't welcome at Christmas. She told me it wasn't permanent, just for this year, and that everyone needed some space, reaching out as if to hold my hand before pulling back and suggesting I spend Christmas with my brother Paul in Vancouver, even though we barely spoke. That night, while Margaret slept, I lay awake in the silence, thinking about all the Christmases at the cottage we'd shared since Trevor was 5, the snow, the fire, her tortilla, the kids and later the grandkids filling the place with life, and how it felt like I was being pushed out of it all. In the morning she was already gone to her book club, leaving a short note and coffee on the counter, and I spent most of the day in my basement workshop, the one place that still felt like it belonged to me, while the rest of the house had slowly become Margaret's space, shaped by her choices, rules, and order. For the past 8 months, I had been working on something no one in my family knew about, and even if they had, I doubt they would have cared, seeing me as just old Robert hiding in his workshop. But this work felt more real to me than anything I'd done in years, and it began with a conversation in March at a retirement party with a former colleague, David Chen, who had moved into consulting and was working with tech startups. Over drinks, he talked about what he saw as the biggest problem in modern construction, the lack of coordination between architects, engineers, contractors, and suppliers, all using different systems, software, and measurements, and that idea stuck with me. I agreed with David because I knew from decades of experience that many delays and cost overruns come from poor communication, and when he casually said someone should build a universal platform to connect architects, engineers, contractors, and suppliers in real time, possibly using AI, it stayed with me long after he moved on. What he didn't know was that back in the 1990s, while working on the Shepherd subway line, I had created a simple but effective coordination system to standardize communication between contractors, and it worked so well the city used it for years before it was forgotten as technology changed. The system was old, paper-based, and limited, but I still had the core ideas and structure, and I'd confirmed over time that they could be modernized. After that conversation, I stopped just thinking and started building, teaching myself Python, learning about machine learning, and studying modern construction technology, even though Margaret believed I was simply wasting time on the computer. The kids joked about Grandpa learning to code, but I was actually building something real, a platform designed to solve the exact coordination problem David had described. By November, I had a working prototype that wasn't flashy but did the job, and when I tested it using old project data, the results were impressive, cutting coordination time by up to 60%, reducing costs by 40%, and catching mistakes early. I showed it to David over coffee, almost casually, and after staring at my screen in silence for several minutes, he finally looked at me like he was seeing a stranger and asked if I understood what I'd created. When I called it a coordination platform, he shook his head and said it was a billion-dollar, industry-changing idea, then laughed in disbelief that I had built it alone in 8 months, while I calmly explained that the principles were solid and I'd simply updated them for modern technology. When David asked if he could show my work to investors, I agreed because I felt I had nothing to lose, and within 3 weeks he had introduced me to a Toronto firm called Apex Ventures that focused on construction technology and showed serious interest. They questioned me deeply about the technology, the business, and the market, and I answered confidently after 35 years in the field, knowing it better than many younger professionals. They decided not only to invest but to buy the platform outright, offering to hire me as chief technical advisor and speed up development, and the 7-figure number they mentioned left me stunned. I told no one in my family, knowing they would likely dismiss it, so I quietly worked with lawyers, signed the deal, and agreed it would be finalized and announced on December 26th. When Christmas came, Margaret left for the cottage on the 23rd with bags packed for both of us, saying I could still change my mind, but I didn't, and on Christmas Eve Trevor called just to wish me a Merry Christmas, which I returned calmly. Trevor asked if I was okay and said Mom told him I decided not to come, a word that didn't quite fit, but I told him I was fine and to enjoy the cottage, and after an awkward pause we hung up. I sat alone in the living room with a glass of scotch, surrounded by decorations Margaret had insisted on, and the house felt more like a display than a home, yet I wasn't angry or bitter, just calm and oddly at peace, free from judgment for the first time in months. I spent Christmas Day in my basement polishing the platform before the deal closed, made myself a simple turkey and cranberry sandwich to keep some sense of tradition, and just after midnight, as Christmas turned into Boxing Day, my phone rang and Trevor's shaky voice told me something was wrong, asking what I had done and saying my name was on the news. The CBC News app just sent a notification. It says, Robert William Harrison, Toronto civil engineer, has sold groundbreaking construction technology platform to Apex Ventures for he stopped. Dad, it says $8. 5 million. I sat down. I'd known the announcement was coming, but I hadn't realized it would be immediate. Midnight on Boxing Day, they'd said. They'd been literal. Oh, I said. That Trevor's voice cracked. Dad, what is this? Is this real? It's real. You sold something for $8. 5 million. Initial buyout. There's more if performance targets are met. Could be up to 20 million over 5 years. Silence. Then I need to call you back. He hung up. 30 seconds later, Emma called, then Margaret, then Trevor again. My phone didn't stop ringing for the next hour. I let most of them go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to 47 text messages, 12 voicemails, and 6 emails. Most were from family members. Some were from old colleagues who'd seen the news. A few were from journalists asking for interviews. Margaret came home that afternoon alone. She walked into the house without knocking, even though technically she'd left me here by myself. Robert, she just stood there in the doorway. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what, don't play games. The technology, the deal, any of it. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was wearing the sweater I'd bought her last Christmas, the one she'd thanked me for, but never worn. Until now, would you have been interested? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time anyone in this family asked what I was working on? When was the last time anyone cared about my opinion? Unless it was to tell me I was wrong. You could have said something. I did say things. I said a lot of things. I had opinions and ideas and thoughts. And everyone, including you, made it very clear that those things weren't welcome anymore. Margaret sat down. She looked tired. The kids feel terrible. I'm sure they do. Trevor is devastated. He says he had no idea you were working on something so important. He wouldn't have cared if he did know. 8 months ago, when I told him I was learning to code, he laughed. He made a joke about teaching old dogs new tricks. He didn't mean yes, he did. Emma made jokes, too. And you, Margaret, you told people at your book club that I was going through a phase, that I was having some kind of late life crisis, playing on the computer instead of accepting retirement. She flinched. Someone told you that? Linda Morrison. She thought I should know. She also thought it was cruel. Margaret was crying now. Not dramatically, just quiet tears running down her face. I'm sorry for what specifically? For not listening. For not taking you seriously. For thinking, she wiped her eyes. For thinking you were just my old, stubborn husband who couldn't adapt to how things are now. I am old, I said. And stubborn, but I'm not obsolete. I never was. No, she agreed quietly. You're not. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, she asked, what happens now with us? With everything? I've been thinking about this all night. The deal closes officially today. Apex wants me to start consulting in January, helping their team develop the platform further. They're talking about expansion, international markets, partnerships with major construction firms. That's not what I meant. I know. I looked at her. I think we need to talk, really talk about the last few years, about how we got here, about whether we can fix this. Do you want to fix it? That was the question, wasn't it? Did I want to go back to being the family member everyone tolerated but didn't respect? Did I want to spend my remaining years walking on eggshells, making myself smaller so everyone else could feel bigger? I don't know, I said honestly. I know I loved you for 43 years. I know we built a life together, but I don't know if I can go back to being the person you all wanted me to be. We never wanted you to be anyone else. Yes, you did. You wanted me to be quieter, less opinionated, more agreeable. You wanted me to just nod and smile and stop having thoughts that didn't match everyone else's. She didn't argue. She couldn't because we both knew it was true. Trevor and Emma showed up that evening together, which suggested they'd coordinated. They stood in my living room looking uncomfortable, like teenagers who'd been caught doing something wrong. Dad, Trevor started. We owe you an apology. Multiple apologies, Emma added. I waited. Trevor continued. We've been treating you like you didn't matter. Like your experience and your knowledge and your ideas were outdated. And we were wrong. Completely wrong. Emma said, what you built, Dad, it's incredible. I've been reading about it online. The articles are saying it could revolutionize construction coordination. One journalist called it the most innovative solution to come out of Canada in the last decade. I don't care what journalists say, I told them. What do you care about? Trevor asked. I care about being respected. Not because I made money, but because I'm your father and I've lived 67 years on this planet and I might actually know some things worth listening to. They both nodded, chastened. I care. I continued about being part of a family that values me for who I am, not who they want me to be. I care about having conversations where my opinions aren't automatically dismissed because I'm old or because I don't understand social media or because I actually remember what happened the last time someone tried to scheme like cryptocurrency. The podcast wasn't about cryptocurrency, Trevor muttered. It was about investment strategies. It was about cryptocurrency. He smiled slightly. Yeah, okay. It was mostly about cryptocurrency. Emma stepped forward. Dad, can we start over, not forget everything, but try to do better? That depends, I said. Are you here because you respect me or because I'm suddenly worth $8 million? Both, Trevor said bluntly. Then, seeing my face. I mean, yes, the money made us realize we'd been idiots, but that doesn't make us wrong about being idiots. We were. And if it took this to wake us up, then I'm grateful it happened, even though I'm ashamed it was necessary. I appreciated the honesty. At least here's what I need. I said, I need space, time to think, time to figure out what I want from the rest of my life, which might be another 20 years if I'm lucky. I'm not making any promises about family dinners or cottages or pretending everything is fine when it's not. That's fair, Emma said. And I added, if we're going to rebuild this, it has to be real. Not just everyone being nice because they're guilty or because they think I'm going to write them into my will. Trevor winced. We deserve that. Yes, I agreed. You do. They left after another hour of awkward conversation. Promises were made, intentions stated. But I'd learned enough in 67 years to know that intentions meant nothing without actions. The weeks that followed were strange. The story of my platform sale made national news. I got interview requests from business magazines, tech podcasts, even a call from someone at Dragon's Den wanting to know if I'd be interested in being a guest advisor. I declined most of them. I wasn't interested in being famous. I just wanted to work. Apex Ventures set me up with an office at their headquarters in downtown Toronto. Nothing fancy, just a space where I could meet with their development team. They'd hired 12 engineers to work on expanding the platform, and they wanted me involved in all major decisions. It was energizing. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I felt alive. I had purpose beyond just existing, beyond just being someone's husband or father or retired civil engineer. I was building something again. Margaret and I started therapy in January. Her idea, surprisingly, We'd sit in Dr. Kapoor's office every Thursday evening and try to untangle 43 years of marriage, examining the good parts and the broken parts with equal scrutiny. When did you start feeling unheard? Dr. Kapoor asked me during one session. I thought about it gradually. Maybe 10 years ago. The kids were adults making their own lives. Margaret got busier with her activities. I was still working, but the job had become routine. I think everyone just stopped seeing me as someone who was still growing, still changing. I became fixed in their minds as Dad or Robert, this unchanging figure who'd always be exactly as I was. And how did that feel? Like dying slowly, like being erased one conversation at a time. Margaret was crying again. She'd been crying a lot in therapy. I didn't know, she said. I thought you were happy, content. I thought so too for a while. But content isn't the same as fulfilled. In February, Trevor came to me with a business proposal. His marketing expertise combined with my platform could create a comprehensive solution for construction firms. Not just coordination, but client communication, project visualization, branding. My first instinct was to say no, to protect what I'd built, keep it separate from family complications. But then I remembered what I'd told him. Actions matter more than intentions. Let's see your proposal. I said it was good. Really good. He'd done his homework, identified gaps in the market, created projections. It wasn't just an idea anymore. It was a plan. We spent 3 months developing it together. Working alongside my son, I rediscovered parts of him I'd forgotten. He was smart, creative, genuinely talented at understanding market dynamics. And he listened. Really listened. Not just waiting for his turn to talk. In May, we presented the idea to Apex. They loved it. They brought Trevor on as a consultant, and by July, he was heading up the marketing division for the platform's expansion into the residential construction market. Emma took a different approach. She asked if she could bring her social work perspective to the platform, focusing on how construction projects impacted communities, particularly vulnerable populations. It wasn't about the money for her. She genuinely cared about making sure the technology served people, not just profit margins. We created an advisory board addressing social impacts. Emma chaired it. Her insights about community engagement transformed how we approached project coordination in residential areas. Margaret started taking computer classes. She said she wanted to understand what I'd been doing in the basement all those months. She'd never be a programmer, but she learned enough to have informed conversations about the work. More importantly, she started asking questions again. Real questions, interested questions, the kind of questions that assume the person you're talking to might know something you don't. By Christmas, 1 year after I'd spent the holiday alone, things were different. Not perfect, not magically healed, but different in ways that mattered. We went to the cottage as a family. All of us, plus Emma's boyfriend with the tattoos, who turned out to be a paramedic and one of the most grounded people I'd ever met. Trevor brought his new girlfriend, an architect who'd heard about my platform and wanted to discuss practical applications. On Christmas Eve, after dinner, Trevor asked me to step outside with him. We stood on the cottage deck looking at the snow-covered lake, our breath visible in the cold air. "Dad," he said, "I need to tell you something." "All right." "Last Christmas when Mom told you not to come, I was relieved. I thought it would be easier without you there. Less tense, less complicated." He paused. "It was the worst Christmas of my life." "Trevor, no. Let me finish. It wasn't just that you weren't there. It was that we'd made you not be there. And the whole time I kept thinking about all the Christmases before. All the times you'd given advice or shared your opinion and I'd rolled my eyes or changed the subject. All the times I'd treated you like you were this obligation we had to deal with instead of someone who loved us and wanted to help." He was tearing up. My son, 42 years old, crying on the cottage deck. "The platform," he continued, "that's impressive. That changed my life professionally and financially. But it's not why I'm sorry. I'm sorry because even if you'd never built that platform, even if you just stayed retired and worked on your projects and lived your life, you still deserve better than what we gave you. I pulled him into a hug. He sobbed against my shoulder like he hadn't done since he was a child. I forgive you, I said. But more than that, I'm proud of you for recognizing it, for changing, for being willing to do better. Are you happy, Dad? Now, with everything that's happened, I thought about it. The platform, the money, the recognition, the family healing, all of it was good, important. But the real answer was simpler. I'm not invisible anymore, I said. That's what makes me happy. Being seen inside through the cottage window, I could see Margaret laughing with Emma. The Christmas tree lights reflected off the wine glasses. It looked like a commercial, like someone's ideal of family togetherness. But it wasn't ideal. It was real, messy, and complicated, and still healing from wounds that went deep, but real. And that, I'd learned, was worth more than any dollar amount Apex Ventures could offer. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat by the fireplace with my laptop. I was working on a new project, just preliminary ideas, an extension of the platform that could revolutionize infrastructure maintenance, predict problems before they became critical. I hadn't told anyone yet. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But this time, it wasn't because I felt invisible. It was because I'd learned something valuable about myself over the past year. I didn't need external validation to know my work mattered. I didn't need anyone's permission to keep growing, keep learning, keep building. At 67, I was just getting started. My phone buzzed. A text from David Chen. Saw the quarterly numbers. Your platform is exceeding every projection. You've built something special, Robert. Merry Christmas. I smiled and set the phone aside. The fire crackled. Snow fell outside the window. Somewhere upstairs, my family slept, comfortable in a cottage that had almost lost me for good. But I was still here, still working, still building, still proving that obsolete was a word that didn't apply to someone who refused to stop growing. And that, I thought, as I closed my laptop and headed to bed, was the real victory. Not the money, not the recognition, not even the family healing. The victory was knowing that I'd spent 67 years becoming someone worth listening to, and I'd finally learned to believe it.